The uncle looked hard at his younger nephew, who sat smiling confidently. "He'll be alright," he thought, "as long as that worthless rat of a nephew keeps his mouth shut. The little fool doesn't even realise the trouble is in. I do not need to concern myself with his brother for now." The uncle watched as the father leaned back in his chair. "My goodness," he thought, "he's smiling. Does he approve of his younger son? What's he up to? Well, I'd best find out." The uncle glanced at the father figure and finally said, "So, brother, you called us here. Please explain. I'm very busy." "I will get to you in due time, brother," the father said pleasantly. "First, I would like to talk about my younger son." "The younger son's still smiling," thought the uncle. "What is he up to?" At the mention of his name, the younger son's smile wavered a little. Now he's worried, the uncle decided. Good. Maybe brother dear will crush him. That would suit me well. "Son, there was a killing a few nights ago. Did you know that?" The father leaned forward. "Yes, father, I heard." "Ah, you heard. Indeed, I'm sure you did. Are you such a fool to think I would not know? Only because you are my son do you sit here. Only because you are my son will you walk out of here today. You may have ruined our plans. We must fix your mess." The father turned to his brother. "What about you?" The uncle flinched, thinking he was doomed. "Can you correct my headstrong son's error? He doesn't suspect me. Maybe I can convince him to do what I want," the uncle thought. "Brother, there may be those who will talk," he said. "They must be found and dealt with. And there are others asking questions. Some of them we've had dealings with before. One of them in particular betrayed us in the capital city. The authorities we can satisfy, but others may dig too deeply. This must be prevented, and attention must be diverted from the society. Let us do what we can to stir up trouble for the Kabasi." The father leant back, the tension slowly leaving his face. "Good," thought the uncle. "He's thinking about it. Go with it, brother. Do what I want you to." He forced a small smile. "Now, with my nephews in shame, he will depend more and more on me," he said to himself. "Yes, brother," agreed the father figure. "My youngest, try to redeem yourself. Find the killers and deal with them. My eldest, the public must be made aware of the threat the Kabasi poses to their safety. Spread the word to them. Brother, you will deal with those who ask too many questions. I want no more inquisitive noses." The father stood and padded slowly out of the room. Across the table, the youngest son glared at his uncle, his eyes showing his hate. Hello and welcome to the Battling Barrow, and as the Kaiser Chiefs once said, I predict a riot. Yes, it's another D&D campaign waffle session. This is episode 5. If you need to catch up, there is a playlist. Let's just jump straight into it, shall we? So, yes, after last week, our players were investigating a murder. They are continuing their investigation. It has led them to the fish market district where new boats are built in the shipyard. And they've been staking it out for a few days trying to find their quarry. One Archer Gosfer and his companion. Archer has red hair and is presumably wounded. His companion is called Baldo and has a big bushy black beard. And so far they haven't had any luck in finding them. In the meantime, Aniraphel has heard of Marianne Diago's death. His first instinct was to blame Octus Kabasi, so goes and handles that thread of fault, but we already know that that is a fake lead, and he quickly deduces that as well. He goes and questions the Kabasis and finds out that Octus has nothing to do with it. He also has found information that it's probably a dockhand that is the murderer, and realises that most of them drink in the Drunken Fisherman Inn in the Fish Market District, so he has been staking that out. So our players are vaguely in the same vicinity. It's market day in the fish market, so it's a busy day here, and the players are sort of perusing the market. The mood on the streets has turned since Marianne's death, though. She seemed to be the people's noble, the only sort of noble that the commoners sort of respected. Most of the time they're sort of anti-noble, they're the ones that cause taxes and what have you, and the mood on the streets is getting more and more hostile towards nobles. During this day at the market, there is there's entertainment from Betsy Wooster's Wondrous Cavalcade. This involves a halfling called Betsy and his brother, and they are standing on each other's shoulders juggling. There is a strong woman, a dancer, there is a female jester, which is someone the players are interested in, as she has bought black pitch for some unknown reason. But they didn't know her. No, she hasn't bought black pitch. She bought the wine. She is partaking in the wine. That was part of a clue from last week. But they can't see her hair. And there is also a dwarf who is doing a puppet show called Slunchy and Orky. Slunchy being a wizard, Orky being his wife, an orc. It's basically Punch and Judy, but with a wizard and an orc. And for some reason he performs it naked, with his beard covering up most of his naughty bits. There is also an orator on the street, standing on a box, giving a speech, riling up the crowd no end about his disdain for the nobles and what they do for the people. Absolutely nothing. And it's at this moment when our players meet up again, just as the crowd is getting really rolled up. Behind them, 30 armoured horsemen proceed to come up into the market. The Lord Azure's men to try and quell this growing tide of disdain. The crowd don't like this and throw a stone at one of them that hits him, and he falls off his horse, and then there is silence. You could hear a pin drop at this, but the silence doesn't last long as it erupts into a full-blown riot. The horsemen charge into the crowd, attacking them without any thought or reason. They're just part of the riot. The rioters are attacking the armed guards, and our players are caught in the middle of this. They're slightly separated out at the time being. Witchpoo casts a spell, it's Winged Steed. It basically materialises a Winged Steed, which she gets on and flies above the crowd to get herself out of it. She takes too much damage. She is a wizard, not armoured, not as many hit points as the others, so she flies out of it. She doesn't really want to start fighting back because it is the armed guard of the town, so she doesn't really want to attack them. It is against the people in the crowd. She doesn't really want to attack them. Likewise, Walker decides the best place to be is to climb the building he's near and climb on top. Now, I put a model there who is going to be used in a future video, a fisherman. He's standing on the platform, and all the way through before the riot started, Walker has been encouraging him to jump. There is a little washing basket down below, a bowl down below, so encourage him to jump into it for a joke. He obviously doesn't, but when the riot breaks out, Walker climbs up this building and he gets a 1 on his dexterity check to climb the building. Now, I didn't make him fall down. What I made him do is, as he's climbing, he does fall a bit but scrambles, and during this scramble he accidentally pushes this chap off, who falls and does do a bit of damage. Not life-threatening, but enough. Little do these players know, this character they've just pushed off is the landlord of the Drunken Fisherman, which will be becoming important in another part of the story. So they're obviously going to have disadvantage on social interaction with him due to one, Ranger just taunting him to jump, and two, them pushing him off the building. So yeah, but Ranger finally gets the safety. And Nerafol, on the other hand, rushes to the side. At this time, they all are charged by 2 guards each, which they deal with in their respective manner. Nerafol throws one guard from his horse and decides to climb off it. This action has not gone unnoticed by the people, who start cheering him as the people's champion. So he is now against the guards, as it were. The guards see him as a legitimate target. The riot escalates. At this time, a stall of fish pies has got knocked over into the courtyard, creating an awful, slippery, sticky, smelly mess. So anyone in that has to make dex checks or fall over. Anirafel, the orator, decides to book it down an alley. The cause of all this trouble, decides to book it down an alley. From up above, Galfenwith spots this and knows where it is. Ranger sees this as well. Unfortunately, Nerafol doesn't, but he just so happens to be booking it that way on his horse anyway, because that's the way that made more sense, away from the trouble where he was. But unfortunately, at this moment in time, as he's about halfway across the courtyard, the strong woman from Betsy Wooster's cavalcade picks up a pig from a butcher stall next door, which is his pet pig. So yes, before the riot started, the players investigate some NPCs, and there was a butcher with a pig, and he was very protective of it. He is a non-pork butcher, so he doesn't deal in pork. He keeps this pig as a pet. So he sells cow sausages rather than pork sausages. So it's this pig that is snatched up by the strong woman and hurled just into the crowd, and it just so happens to hit Anirafel and knock him from his horse. As he's getting up, of course, a big, massive thug walks over. He wants to be the people's champion and lead the people, not some scrawny half-elf roguish type chap. And so it looks like there is going to be a confrontation, and that is dealt with quite swiftly, due to Anirafel being a better character, as it were. The riot continues, and the players make it down the alley. Anirafel gets there first, but gets back on his horse and gets there first before the other players. Sends his horse charging back out the alley. What Galfenwith sees from above as well is there are armed guards closing in on the roads around the courtyard as well, effectively trying to seal it off and stop the riot from breaking out. So that they've managed to get out just in time before the armed guards come and close it all off. They go down the alley and realise Galfenwith has seen what building the orator has gone into. They try and open the door, but it's stuck. It's not locked. It actually feels like it's been blocked up from the other side. So they bash down the door using their strength and find a totally empty room. It doesn't even look like there's any furniture in here. The only thing that is here is a trapdoor, to which they open it up, and there is a tunnel that sort of leads northwest about 300 foot to another ladder going up. This tunnel looks like much the same as the tunnels that the players discovered last week under the city, all shored up nicely. So it's more tunnels that this nefarious society has been digging under the town, under the city. So they go through the tunnel and sort of stealth up, like have a peek up where it leads, and they can see the orator at the door peeping out, making sure the coast is clear before he makes his exit. They stealth up and grab him by surprise and begin to question him. He tells them he is a member of the Valg Society. He tells them that they meet in a secret room at the back of the Drunken Fisherman Inn. He tells them that they ask him, who are the other members, and of course that's the whole point of the Valg Society. Not even he knows. No member knows who the other members are. They always go in one at a time to the meeting at different times. They have different designated times. Go to the back where they put their robes on and their hood, and then go to the meeting chamber. No one knows who the other members are. This was also established last week when the guards captured the slavers that were whipping the people digging the tunnels. They were just as surprised when they unmasked who the other people were in the Valk Society as the guards were. So this makes it a really sketchy society. You can't, just because you capture one, that means nothing, because he doesn't know anything, doesn't know who the leader is, doesn't even know who the other members are. All the different members meet up at different times. All he can tell them was next week he has a meeting at the Drunken Fisherman Inn. So players decide that perhaps then they will infiltrate that. They just need some disguises. I believe he is then dispatched with there is a bit of an escape thing. He decides to do something, and he ends up dead. I don't feel too bad for him. He is an evil person, legitimately evil people, the Valk Society. Going back a few moments, typical waffle session. One thing I should point out is during the argy-bargy of the riot, someone had sort of gently nudged into Anirothal, but handed him a piece of paper with a note. The note is effectively from, if you remember a few sessions ago, both players got jobs from different parties. This is one of those parties, and it is telling Anirothal to meet him at the Silver Coin Tavern tonight at second bell, which is midnight. First bell is 11, say curfew's about to start. Second bell is midnight, when curfew is in effect. So I am going to use that in this session. Back at the Fisherman's Fiend, I now need to get a nice reason to separate the party, but I have that other job, so I utilise that. Back at the Fisherman's Fiend, Mr. Tibbs says someone has been looking for Galfenwith and Walker. It's Theosis, the Jordan Theosis, or as people called him, Geordie, as he's also from the northeast and has a Geordie accent. Bad name, but ho-hum. They have a job tonight to do from their appointment. They have to go to the Green Jade at the docks, pick up a package and deliver it to Lord Azure's palace. Should be straightforward. There was a warning that someone may try and take that package, but that's why they were hired as the muscle to prevent that from happening. So we have a bit of inter-player RPG in the tavern before both parties go off their respective ways. Now here I set up street tiles, one side for one group of players and one side for Anirothal. I set up Anirothal's as the ultimate destination for now, just rather than bother doing that. But the other side I set up as just a few street tiles just to represent where they currently are and just add to it with turns and streaks and what have you. So Anirothal meets up with his group. It is a group of 10 people outside the Silver Coin Tavern, and they basically say they need to teach someone a lesson, make sure someone doesn't get to the destination, and to wear this disguise. And it's a hooded disguise, much the same as the Valk Society. And I think at this point Anirothal's quickly guessed that he's now working for them. By the end of it, he will use some of his sort of bardic magic and suggestion spells and what have you, detect thoughts, to quickly ascertain that yes, he is now working for the Valk Society. Meanwhile, on the other side of the board, the players make their way to the docks, where they see a sort of crazy captain guy who at first seems hostile, then he realises who they are, is much more friendly, and reveals the package is in fact a person. It is in fact Simon Kerbassi, who is a statesman, a politician in the capital city, who has been summoned by Lord Azure to help discuss to make sure there's peace amongst the nobles. At the moment, the factions all, especially with Marianne's death, are all sort of getting up in arms. The riot is a direct result of this, so he is here to make sure the city doesn't tear himself apart. It's imperative he gets to Lord Azure's palace in secret. There are people who will want to stop him from happening this, obviously the people behind all this insidious happenings, and so he the players sort of agreed to take him there. As this goes on, a group of 10 ragged looking men come round the corner, and one drops to his knee and gives a really strange sort of over the top speech about serving the Lord Simon, and he says he is from the Prince of Beggars, who have sent this group of beggars to act as bodyguards. The players are sort of against taking them on, but due to who are these? Could they be Valk Society, and suddenly turn around and strike and kill him at the most unopportune moment? But Simon seems taken by them, and with that, they have a bodyguard group, and they continue to work their way through the streets. Nerophil is told to go to this street section, which I've already pre-set up, and there are 3 alleys, and he is told to split the group into 3 alleys. The Valk Society, 10 Valk Society members split up into 3 groups. Nerophil puts himself into one of those groups, and they're told when to strike. I sort of gave Nerophil a another sort of secret message during the game that basically said what the instructions were, which is when the target gets to the middle of the street, the leader will give the signal and they will attack. They must get the target, which is Simon. Now the players didn't know this, so at this point only Nerophil know this. I sent him a picture via WhatsApp of the model in question, but I still treating it like 2 separate accounts. But going back to separate accounts, separate encounters is what I'm looking for. Waffle, love it. So we go back to Gelfenwith and Walker. I've set up the streaks. I keep on doing every so often that there is a noise behind them to get them to look that way, to make it look like they're being followed, so the danger is behind and not in front. Again, to plot their path, which path they're going to go. That will tell me how long it will be to the ultimate encounter. Unfortunately, the path they picked was the one that led them directly to the ambush. There could be other paths. It would ultimately all lead to the ambush, but there would be better paths they might be able to have chosen to get a heads up on what's going on. Unfortunately, they don't take this one. They take the most direct path. They so I'm always trying to draw their attention behind them, sound behind them. Now, this is 2 purposes. One, what they didn't realise is they were actually being stalked by something. More on that next week, possibly. Maybe a week's time. There was someone following them, possibly a little. That person's following has been seen in this season already, but more importantly, he was someone from towards the end, about October last year. Walker did something to someone, and now this is coming into play now. So there was someone stalking them, just not the party in question. So I'm leading it all up, and I'm telling them. Sort of then dual setting the board up, so it's sort of not exactly the same as Nerophil section, but similar enough, so it's a road going down with a building just at the quiet time. And then suddenly I've already rolled this group's perception against this group's stealth. There isn't any surprise, so but this group, as soon as the Walker is put into position. And by the way, I've got Walker's group to do, Walker and Gelfenwith's group to do a marching order, and they put Simon right in the middle, beggars all around, and the players. I think that Walker's at the front, Gelfenwith's at the back. As I get to a certain point, it's then roll initiative because you're being ambushed. At first, it was a bit confusing. I'll jump across to an area first and go, you roll for initiative, and then I move basically Walker's. And Gelfenwith's models onto an Nerophil side, and then the penny drops that there is player versus player at this stage. I think an Nerophil's plan was to, and I misread this, was to go and just basically instantly assassinate Simon, but due to the way what Walker and Walker and Gelfenwith are set up, there's no way that could possibly happen. There's too many beggars in the way, Walker's in the way, so Nerophil decides to change his plan and, during the initiative, kill the leader of the Valk Society, or at least attack him. They're quite strong. I think they had about 38 hit points each of the 10 members. The beggars had a lot less. They could be pretty much down in one here. The Valve Society are a bit more of a threat. And the combat, now when we played this, I have to admit it didn't seem to last that long, but on watching the full play session available to patrons, it lasts about an hour. Who would have thought? But anyway, it goes on, beggars die, Valve Society die, players get wounded, players don't get wounded, but they succeed. They manage to succeed. Most of the beggars dead, and they get Simon to the Lord Azure's palace. And I'm sure this will hopefully be remembered in the future. With that, the players go home, go to the pub and settle down, try and settle down for the night. But before they do, there is a strange knock at the door. The passphrase is given, and in walks a hooded man. His hood is so dark you can't see his face. It is just not there, and he gives off an awful chill vibe, just and he speaks in a whispered, hushed, creepy voice. Now I may have overdone it here. I just wanted to give a creepy voice. The players were just so untrustworthy. Now, if you remember going back many weeks ago, almost the second session I think it was, I'd gotten my players to roll some just dice, random dice. Now this was creating Thieves Guild jobs, much the same as Dungeon Craft Professor DM done. I'm using the same sort of system as that video. I'll probably link it in the description below so you can see what I mean. Go and watch that video. It's great anyway because he's covering the Valve Society, or Revolve Society as he calls it. But anyway, I used that to create a few jobs, and this is one of the jobs. It was basically, the job is from Lord Azure, so this is one of his emissaries, wants the party to get a necklace from the cemetery, and it's against the opponent is the Diago family. Brilliant. So this is great because a recent Diago, Marianne, has just died, and so what this job is, they have to retrieve a necklace that was interred with Marianne Diago before midnight the next night. So this will be next week's session, of course. Now, of course, this is just getting a job done, but I think I made this emissary so creepy. It was really off. The players were really off-put, and I didn't realise that. I thought it'd just be quite a quick way to end the session. Yeah, here's the job. This is next session that I can plan for. But I think I made it too creepy, and they were untrustworthy. They were like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" In the end, I had to sort of reassure him out of the game. Go, no, it's just what it is. He's not evil. He's not setting you up or anything. It's just the job for next week. So they accept it. So yes, that'll be next session. Before we finally, hopefully, solve the murder that has been going on here, and hopefully put the streets of Black Sand at ease. But yeah, so that's the end of this one. I hope I've done it properly. If you want to see the full thing, join Patreon. It's join for as little as you want. Yeah, I've always put the full sessions on. Yeah, until the next waffle session though, guys, stay safe, take care, bye bye.